We start with a guy named Hyung-soo, who is on his very first online date. But the guy is incredibly shy, so awkward, in fact, that he only dares to sneak peeks at the girl from behind. Once he thinks things are going well and the coast is clear, he starts stripping down, getting ready for some action. However, the second Hyung-soo steps into the bathroom, the girl, Juang, completely flips the script. She puts on a face mask, takes a suspicious phone call, and slips out into the hallway to meet another man. After that, she heads into a prep room, changes into a revealing outfit, and heads back to Hyung-soo's room. But by the time she returns, the room is suddenly packed with people. Before Hyung-soo even knows what hit him, he's tied up tight and dragged out of what looks like a hospital. As it turns out, he didn't stumble into a date, he stumbled into an illegal organ auction. Juang reveals her true colors as the auctioneer. She starts introducing every single part of Hyung-soo's body to the hungry crowd. One man, claiming to be a devoted son desperate to save his dying father, grits his teeth and aggressively outbids everyone to buy Hyung-soo's right kidney. But then, disaster strikes. A massive earthquake rips through the area, leaving the entire place in total ruins. Everyone is bloodied and broken. Juang stands in the middle of the wreckage, completely stunned. Suddenly, Kukryul, the kidney buyer, rushes her, grabbing her and demanding to know where the kidney he just won is. Juang looks at him, then looks at the absolute destruction around them, thinking to herself, this kid must have lost his mind in the earthquake. The whole building just collapsed. He's lucky to be alive and he's still worried about a kidney? She quickly pawns Kukryul off on someone else and picks up a walkie-talkie ringing in the rubble. It's the director on the other end. Juang hides in a corner and lowers her voice, asking if he needs help. But the director is a total jerk. He tells her she isn't even important enough to speak to him and only cares about finding someone named Hisuk. Juang sees an opportunity she's been waiting for. She lies through her teeth, telling him that Hisuk is trapped under the debris and can't answer the phone. She tries to fish for information, asking if the director is alone, but he doesn't answer. He just barks at her to find Hisuk. Outside, it's pure chaos. The building's collapse has blocked every single exit. With their phones confiscated earlier, everyone is trapped with no way to call for help. One panicked buyer starts screaming that the organization needs to take responsibility, threatening to call the cops. Big mistake. In a place like this, calling the police is a death sentence. To cover up their crimes, the organization decides the easiest way to keep everyone quiet is to just start killing them. Immediately, the guy who shouted about the police is kicked straight into a massive crack in the rubble. A lawless massacre begins. Juang knows she can't wait any longer. She gets back on the radio and asks the director again if he's alone, but he still only cares about Hisuk. Juang finally loses it. She screams, "You bastard," into the radio and tells him flat out that Hisuk is dead. She hurls the radio aside and turns to stop the real Hisuk, who was just about to leave. Juang doesn't beat around the bush. She proposes a deal. She tells Hisuk she knows exactly where the director hides his cash. If they pull this off, Hisuk can have all of it. She hints that since the building collapsed anyway, a few more dead bodies would just look like accidents. She's literally asking him to team up and take out the director. Right as they're talking, another earthquake hits, and poor Hyung-soo, still tied up, is having the worst day of his life. Hisuk seems to be considering the offer. After a moment of thought, he reaches out to shake Juyoung's hand as a sign of peace. But the second he grabs her hand, a cold smile creeps across his face. He tells her he's always loved the director and would never dream of betraying him. Juang is absolutely paralyzed with shock. She turns to run, but Hisuk grabs her and throws her straight off the ledge to the floor below. By some miracle, she lands in a large pool of water and survives. As she crawls onto the shore, she runs into two thugs. These guys look at her with a creepy vibe, asking why she isn't upstairs at the auction. Juang, still shaken from the fall, grabs them and screams that the building is collapsing and they need to find a way out. But she forgot one thing. These two are known as the idiots for a reason. They don't listen to a word of logic. The tall thug stares at her like she's a piece of prey, completely unfazed by the earthquake. Luckily for her, the shorter one finishes plugging in the power. The big guy immediately loses interest in Juang, grabs a heavy wooden club, and lunges toward a man tied up nearby. He starts brutally beating the guy, laughing hysterically and shouting, "This is so much fun." The sight is so twisted it makes Juyoung's skin crawl. Just as Juang was about to make a break for it, Min crept closer, holding a broken remote control and posing like he was someone important. The tall thug turned to Juang and began to explain, in disturbing detail, that anyone brought down here had to have their limbs snapped first. If not, that old meat grinder of theirs would jam up easily. He even started complaining that the last time, Min hadn't cleaned up properly, which got them a massive earful from the director. Min immediately got defensive, snapping back that, even if he was a bit slow, he still had his pride, and he demanded to know why everything was being blamed on him. The two of them started brawling, their argument getting more heated by the second until they were fully duking it out. It was at that moment that Juang realized the horrifying truth. This was a secret room where the organization disposed of bodies, and these two idiots were the ones in charge of destroying the evidence. Her heart sank. She knew that if she stayed a second longer, her entire plan would go up in flames. She had to get out of there and fast. Her eyes scanned the room and quickly landed on a door. She grabbed the handle and twisted with all her might, but it wouldn't budge. It was jammed tight. After finishing their fight, the tall thug caught her in the act and let out a mocking laugh. He told her not to waste her breath. That door was only accessible with the director's key. Desperate, Juang tried to play a part, lying that their director was in grave danger and that the minister was planning to kill him. To her surprise, the tall thug had a violent reaction to the news, slamming Juang against the door. With no other way out and panic setting in, Juang began slamming her own head against the door. The loud thud-thud-thud sound startled the big guy, and he instinctively backed off, letting go of her. Right then, Min suddenly called out to the big guy, saying that the person who had just fallen down from above was actually still alive. Before leaving to check, the tall thug gave Juang one last warning. Told her to stop banging her head on the door, because only the director was allowed to bash people's heads in. As soon as the two idiots walked away, Juang scrambled to find another exit. She spotted a ventilation hole high up above the door. She flipped over a plastic crate in the corner to use as a makeshift stool, but even standing on it, she was nowhere near tall enough. Just as she was beginning to spiral, she saw the live one the thugs mentioned. It was Hyung-soo, still tied up from before. An idea flashed in her mind. Remembering what the tall guy said about the grinder jamming easily, she rushed over and started stuffing metal rods and any random junk she could find into the machine. Hyung-soo, tied up and in total survival mode, started screaming at the top of his lungs. He claimed he was a cop and that this was an illegal organ trade, demanding they release him immediately. But his words were useless against the two idiots. In fact, the tall thug hated cops more than anything, and the warning only made him hit Hyung-soo even harder. Meanwhile, more bodies kept being tossed down from the upper floor. The two thugs looked up and yelled, "Stop throwing them. We can't process the bodies fast enough." Juang didn't wait a second longer. She lunged for the switch and turned on the grinder. The machine let out a low drone and started up, but it immediately began belching thick black smoke, making a horrific, high-pitched screeching sound. The two thugs panicked, rushing over to the machine to try to save their precious equipment. Juang used the distraction to bolt over to Hyung-soo and shake him awake. She told him she could get him out, pointing to the vent above the door. Her plan was for Hyung-soo to crouch down so she could climb onto his shoulders and crawl through. Hyung-soo didn't hesitate for a second and nodded. Juang quickly untied him, though she notably never mentioned anything about helping him get out once she was on the other side. The two of them ran to the door. Hyung-soo braced himself and crouched down, and Juang stepped onto his shoulders. She struggled to reach, but she finally managed to pry open the vent and scrambled through with both hands and feet. However, she didn't open the door right away. In the middle of the struggle, the two thug brothers spotted her. Hyung-soo, desperate and trapped, started banging on the door with his fists. Min grabbed his wooden club and began relentlessly beating Hyung-soo, eventually lunging forward to squeeze the life out of his throat. Just as Hyung-soo was about to lose consciousness, a shadow suddenly appeared behind them. It was Kukryul, the man who had bought the kidney earlier. He swung an axe down with everything he had, buried it into Min's back, and the thug let out a blood-curdling scream before collapsing. At that exact moment, Juang finally opened the door and pulled Hyung-soo out. The two of them scrambled into the hallway and slammed the door shut, leaving Min bleeding on the floor inside. The moment they were safe from the thugs, Hyung-soo grabbed Juang and began interrogating her. He demanded to know why she took so long to open the door and if she had planned to leave him there to die. Juang gave him a look of pure annoyance. She snapped back that she had untied him, which made them even, and since she had just opened the door to save his life, he technically owed her one. It was a completely warped logic, but it left Hyung-soo totally speechless. All he could do was pout, unable to find a single word to say back. Hyung-soo turns to thank Kukryul, thinking he's finally found an ally. It turns out Kukryul is more thoughtful than he expected. He even goes as far as giving Hyung-soo a raincoat to wear and follows him closely from behind. But after just a few steps, Hyung-soo realizes things are not what they seem. Juang didn't open the door out of the goodness of her heart. She did it because the path ahead was blocked by heavy debris, and she needed someone to help her move the rocks. And Kukryul? He isn't protecting Hyung-soo out of kindness. He's protecting him because he already paid for Hyung-soo's kidney. In his twisted mind, since he paid the money, he is now responsible for his property. Hyung-soo curses under his breath, thinking both of these people are absolute lunatics. He frantically demands a phone from Juang to call for help. She hands it over with a smile, but as soon as Hyung-soo hits the call button, he realizes the catch. The phone can only receive calls. It can't make them. The only way is forward, Juang says. Maybe there's an emergency phone up ahead. She leads the way into another room, and Hyung-soo and Kukryul have no choice but to follow. Hyung-soo rummages through the room but finds zero signs of an emergency phone. While Juang continues to search, Hyung-soo starts getting incredibly nervous looking at the axe in Kukryul's hand. He can't help but ask if Kukryul is planning to chop him up next. He's convinced Kukryul wouldn't dare attack a cop, but he forgets that even the most honest people can turn deadly when they're pushed to the brink. Suddenly, Kukryul lunges forward. He grabs Hyung-soo's arm and puts him in a chokehold, hissing that if Hyung-soo wants to live, he needs to shut up and follow his lead. He reinforces the idea that Hyung-soo must take responsibility for his kidney. Gasping for air, Hyung-soo can only nod in agreement. Kukryul loosens his grip slightly, telling Hyung-soo that he'll pull him up in a moment, but not before reminding him that he already owes Kukryul 3 lives. To put it bluntly, he is not letting that kidney go. Knowing his life is on the line, Hyung-soo tries to act tough. Kukryul sets up a chair to use as a platform, and man, the sheer strength he displays makes Hyung-soo shiver. No wonder he was able to take him down in one move earlier. Just as they start to climb, the screams of the 2 idiots echo from behind. They've caught up. Just as Hyung-soo's heart starts racing again, Kukryul quickly tosses down a rope made of tied-up bedsheets. One pulls, the other climbs, and they finally make it to the upper floor, narrowly escaping danger. But they barely have a second to breathe before they're spotted by the organization's staff. The employees immediately call for backup, shouting that they're coming down to kill them. Now, they are completely cornered. The idiots are chasing them from below, and the organization's hitters are blocking them from above. They scramble to find a staircase to escape, only to find that every single one is completely sealed off by fallen rubble. Their only option is to keep climbing through the hole they just came from. Kukryul suggests they keep moving together, but Hyung-soo finally snaps. He blows up, telling Kukryul to stop always suggesting they go together. This completely sets Kukryul off. He slams his axe into the wall, sending chunks of concrete flying everywhere. He stares Hyung-soo down and asks if he's trying to back out now after promising to take responsibility until the very end. Terrified by the scene, Hyung-soo immediately changes his tune and tries to sweet-talk Kukryul. He promises that as soon as they get out, he'll go straight to the hospital with him. Kukryul can kill him or chop him up, whatever he wants. Believe it or not, Kukryul actually buys it again and follows Hyung-soo to continue searching for a place to hide. By now, the 2 idiots have chased them up to the next floor, and their footsteps are getting louder and louder. Hyung-soo frantically pulls Kukryul along, trying every door, but they're all locked tight from the inside. Just as the thugs are about to catch up, Hyung-soo's hand hits a handle that actually turns. He reacts instantly, slipping inside alone. Kukryul realizes he's been played yet again and desperately tries to pull the door open, but it's no use. He's been abandoned outside once more. Hyung-soo holds the door shut with everything he's got, ignoring Kukryul's frantic screams for help. In his mind, it's every man for himself. Seconds later, the idiots arrive. The door handle rattles violently before being ripped off by sheer brute force. Hyung-soo, armed with nothing but a can of bug spray he found, hides behind the door. One of the thugs lunges in, grabs him by the collar, and looks ready to toss him into the hallway like a piece of trash. However, the thug suddenly ignores Hyung-soo lying on the ground. Instead, he starts smashing the wall next to them like a maniac, sending chunks of concrete flying everywhere. Hyung-soo cowers in the corner, trembling, until the thug manages to smash a hole through to the roof, climbs up, and disappears. Only then does Hyung-soo dare to breathe. But before he can even stand up, heavy, dragging footsteps echo from behind. A blood-soaked Kukryul stumbles in, his arm twisted at a freakish, unnatural angle. But the look in his eyes is pure obsession. The moment he sees Hyung-soo, he starts chanting about his kidney again. They get into a desperate scuffle, and since Kukryul is badly injured, his strength has faded. Hyung-soo manages to pin him to the floor, but the man refuses to give up, sinking his teeth into Hyung-soo's arm and refusing to let go. In the chaotic struggle, Hyung-soo shoves Kukryul with all his might, sending him tumbling down through a hole in the hallway floor. Juang arrives just in time to witness the whole thing. Hyung-soo frantically explains that it was justifiable self-defense and that Kukryul attacked first. Juang doesn't say a word. She just picks up Kukryul's raincoat from the floor and tosses it to Hyung-soo, telling him to put it on as a disguise so no one recognizes him. The words had barely left her mouth when, Thud. A woman falls from the floor above, landing right in front of them, barely clinging to life. She grabs Juang's pant leg and gasps out a horrific revelation. The minister has ordered his men to start a killing spree, cutting off ears to trade for bounty 100,000 per pair. It's total madness upstairs. With those final words, she stops breathing. Suddenly, a man with a scarred face approaches, brandishing a knife. He barks at Juang and Hyung-soo to stand aside, then leans down and ruthlessly cuts off the dead woman's ears, stuffing them into his bag. Shockingly, this man was actually the woman's boyfriend. Before leaving, he shoots a chilling glance at the two of them, telling them they're lucky he's already carrying an injury. Otherwise, their ears would be in his bag too. Juang is absolutely fuming. She stealthily follows the man who was just cutting off ears, and just as he's about to head upstairs, she delivers a massive kick that sends him flying. The man lets out a blood-curdling scream as he tumbles into the wreckage on the floor below. Juang knows that if he doesn't report back, the higher-ups will definitely send more people down. She turns to Hyung-soo with a furrowed brow and asks, "How about we team up?" She tells him the director has 70 billion won hidden upstairs and promises that if they successfully snatch it, they'll split it right down the middle. Hyung-soo looks at the fake gun in Juang's hand, weighs his options for a moment, and then nods. He's in. The two of them find an abandoned pipe system in the building. This was the tunnel the organization used to dispose of severed body parts and discarded remains. Each floor has an exit, and the plan is to climb the pipe all the way to the top. However, the moment they scramble out onto the next floor, a group of people drags them out and ties them up tight. It turns out these are the buyers who participated in the auction earlier. Now that the place has turned into a literal murder factory, they've banded together for self-preservation. A gangster wearing a black jacket grips a knife tightly. He taps the flat side of the blade against Juang's forehead, demanding to know why an official auctioneer is mixing with the merchandise. Juang quickly spins a lie. There's a civil war happening upstairs. The minister is trying to overthrow the director, and they're killing everyone. I'm on the director's side. Untie me so we can find a way out together. The gangster let out a mocking snort, saying everyone knows she's an organization puppet. He warns her to stay put, or he'll stab her first. He then heads toward the tied-up Hyung-soo, clearly intending to interrogate him. Juang's brain is working at 100 miles per hour. Before the gangster can get close, she suddenly screams that Hyung-soo is a cop. She asks them if they aren't afraid of a police manhunt, claiming that a cop can contact the outside for backup. She tells them that freeing Hyung-soo is their only shot at survival. Hyung-soo reacts instantly. Following Juang's lead, he jumps right into the role. He claims Juang is actually an undercover mole he planted within the organization and that they've been monitoring this black market for a long time. He tells the group that backup was already dispatched before the earthquake hit, and the only reason they haven't arrived is that the building's collapse is making it hard to get in. To make it even more convincing, he nudges his pocket, saying his police badge is right there. A guy with squinty eyes reaches in and, sure enough, pulls out a police ID. When he opens it, the ID number is partially scorched. It was a stroke of luck that Juang had returned his documents earlier. Otherwise, their cover would have been blown on the spot. As soon as the buyers see the badge, they absolutely lose it. Panic sets in, and they start sweating bullets, realizing they just tried to buy a cop's organs and then tied him up. They're terrified that if they ever get out, they'll all be thrown straight into prison. Hyung-soo quickly waves his hands to calm them down. He tells them he's fine for now and promises that if they release him, he'll make sure they aren't prosecuted. He says all he needs is a cell phone to call the precinct for reinforcements. But a middle-aged wife in the group frantically shakes her head. She explains that all their phones were confiscated and are being kept in the storage room on the first floor. Right now, the lower levels are crawling with the organization's hitmen, and no one is brave enough to go down there. Let's just untie them first and talk later, someone says. A large, heavy-set man slams his hand on the table, shouting that keeping Hyung-soo tied up is useless. He argues that they might as well take a gamble on the cop. The gangster narrows his eyes, his grip tightening on his knife. He warns the group not to be stupid, suggesting that Hyung-soo and Juang are likely plants sent by the thugs outside to trick them into lowering their guard. He flat out refuses to let them go, declaring that no one is getting untied on his watch. The fat guy glares back at him. He argues that they should just send Hyung-soo down to the first floor to scout the situation. What's the worst that could happen? The gangster immediately turns hostile, snapping at the fat guy. If he runs away or turns out to be a mole, are you going to take responsibility for that? Hyung-soo, playing along, nods and says the gangster is right. In a situation like this, you can't trust anyone. As the two sides continue to bicker, Hyung-soo leans in close to Juang. He whispers that he's about to make a move and tells her to bolt for the pipe as soon as he does. Then, Hyung-soo raises his voice, offering a deal. Anyone who helps him will get a massive cash reward once they get out. Juang quickly chimes in, saying that a cop's word is bond and that it's better than sitting here waiting to die. Fed up with the arguing, the gangster raises his knife and marches toward Juang. He decides he's going to settle the mole issue once and for all. But before he can get to her, Squinty Eyes lunges forward and grabs the gangster's arm, telling him he's going too far. The fat guy joins in, tackling the gangster from behind. In a fit of rage, the gangster swings his knife, stabbing Squinty Eyes. Squinty Eyes lets out a horrific cry and collapses. The fat guy tries to fight back, but the gangster drives the knife into his thigh and follows up with several more stabs. Within seconds, neither of them is moving. Hyung-soo and the middle-aged wife are paralyzed with fear. Acting as if nothing happened, the gangster hauls Juang off the floor and screams at Hyung-soo. Go down to the first floor and get the phones. Alone. He keeps Juang as a hostage and gives Hyung-soo exactly 10 minutes. If he isn't back by then, Juang is dead. With no other choice, Hyung-soo slides back into the abandoned waste pipe, slowly shimmying his way down. The moment he hits the first floor, he hears a heavy, muffled groan from behind him. He spins around, and his heart stops. It's Kukryul, the man he pushed down the hole earlier. He's leaning against the wall, struggling to stand. He's covered in blood, but his eyes are locked onto Hyung-soo with terrifying intensity. The man just refuses to die. Hyung-soo bolts into a nearby room and slams the door shut just as a loud clang echoes. Kukryul is on the other side, scraping his knife against the door, creating a spine-chilling screech. With every slash, you can hear his absolute fury. He screams at Hyung-soo to stop hiding, vowing that he will get that kidney today. In the middle of their standoff, footsteps approach from the hallway. A thug brandishing a knife walks up and insults Kukryul, calling him a crazy person, blocking the way. Hyung-soo's heart races. As much as Kukryul wants his kidney, he's still a better option than falling into the hands of the organization's hitmen. Thinking fast, Hyung-soo pulls open the door, takes a silk sock stuffed with heavy stones, and hurls it at the thug's head. It misses, but it's enough to draw the guy's attention. Kukryul seizes the opening. He lunges from the side and drives his knife deep into the thug's kidney, twisting it with all his remaining strength. The thug drops dead before he can even let out a sound. Hyung-soo hopes that by helping him, Kukryul might finally let the grudge go and just try to escape. But Kukryul just turns and points his knife at him, warning him not to think that helping out will save his kidney. Kukryul pulls up his shirt, revealing a horrific surgical scar on his waist. His voice trembles as he explains the truth. He already gave one of his kidneys to his father, but the transplant failed. Now, he only has one kidney left. He tells Hyung-soo with desperate finality that if he doesn't get Hyung-soo's kidney, his father simply isn't going to make it. Seeing the desperation in Kukryul's eyes, Hyung-soo plays his final card. He pulls out his police badge and promises that if Kukryul cooperates, he'll use his authority to find a matching kidney for his father once they get out. He even tells him he'll buy two if that's what it takes. Kukryul stares at the badge for a long time, and finally his grip loosens. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out a cell phone. It's the internal communication device Hyung-soo had been searching for, but the second they turn on the screen, their hearts sink. There is absolutely no signal. Hyung-soo starts to panic, wondering if the disaster has hit the world outside. 2. Thinking fast, he loots a plastic bag full of severed ears from the dead thug and shoves it into Kukryul's hands. He tells Kukryul a lie to clear his own path. He claims he's going to the third floor to use an emergency transmitter to save Juang, and instructs Kukryul to go to the fourth floor to find his colleagues. He warns him that if he runs into any thugs, he should just toss them some ears from the bag. They won't stop him if they can get a bounty instead. Kukryul, desperate and trusting, takes the bag and runs toward the fourth floor, having no idea he's walking into a hornet's nest of organization hitters. When Hyung-soo finally makes it back to the third floor, the scene is a nightmare. In the few minutes he was gone, the middle-aged wife had been killed. A crazed man is hunched over, relentlessly stabbing the already dead gangster, and Juang is nowhere to be seen. Meanwhile, Juang is hiding in a ventilation shaft with an old man. They are slowly crawling toward another room. The old man is at his limit, gasping for air against the wall. He tells Juang that their plan is falling apart and he can't go any further. It's all up to her now. He points to a box in the corner and tells her there's a gun inside with only 6 bullets. He begs her to make it out alive, and then his head slumps. He's gone. Juang opens the box and pulls out a very real, very loaded handgun. When Hyung-soo finally reunites with her and sees the weapon, his brow furrows. He asks her just how many more secrets she's been keeping from him. Gripping the gun, Juang finally opens up about her dark past. 15. She was molested by her teacher. She killed him and was sent to juvenile detention. In prison, a female pastor told her that if she prayed sincerely, she would use her connections to get her a reduced sentence. Juang believed her and became the lucky one the pastor spoke of. But on the day she was released, that same pastor sold her to the director, forcing her into the horrific world of the organ auctions. She tried to escape once before, but when they caught her, the organization harvested one of her kidneys and drilled a hole into her skull to install a GPS tracker. She and the old man had been stockpiling ammo to make a break for it, but the earthquake ruined everything. Hyung-soo is left speechless, his mind a whirlwind of emotions. Suddenly, a clatter comes from the ceiling. They both go on high alert as they see a thug trying to pry open the vent cover. Hyung-soo lunges upward, grabs the man's arm, and yanks him down to the floor. Juang immediately presses the barrel of her gun to the thug's temple and demands to know how many people are on the rooftop. Trembling with fear, the thug reveals there are 6 guards up there, all protecting the director's money. Juyoung's eyes turn cold as she grips her weapon. 6 guards, 6 bullets. It's perfect. Juang looks at Hyung-soo, her expression softening for a brief second. She tells him that if he wants to back out now and just save himself, she won't blame him. That promise of a massive payday hits Hyung-soo's greedy streak perfectly. He immediately rips off his jacket and has Juang tape thick magazines to his chest as makeshift body armor. In his head, he's thinking, 70 billion won is waiting for me. What's a little pain compared to that? Before moving out, Juang looks down at the thug they have tied up on the floor. She ruthlessly stabs him in the leg one last time, cold-bloodedly muttering, "These murderers are lucky I don't just end them right now." After scavenging through the wreckage for a while, they finally find a fire hose dangling from above. Hyung-soo grabs it, tests the weight, and starts laying out the tactical plan. He tells Juang, "On my count 3, 2, 1, we move. But you have to wait until they're right on top of us before you pull that trigger." The two of them climb to the upper floor, and the stench of blood is so thick it makes them gag. The floor is a literal graveyard. Bodies are scattered everywhere. Even the 2 idiots from earlier are lying in pools of their own blood. They've clearly missed a massive, violent struggle. As they reach the director's office, Hyung-soo pulls out his fake gun and whispers to Juang, "We fire at the same time to mess with their heads." But before he can even finish his sentence, the office door swings open and a guard pokes his head out. Juang doesn't hesitate. She raises her gun and blows the man's brains out with a single shot. Hyung-soo looks past the body and freezes. Kukryul is still alive? The man is a walking nightmare, completely drenched in blood, but he's still standing. He has a knife pressed firmly against the director's throat. He screams at Hyung-soo, accusing him of lying about the floor being empty. Suddenly, Hee-suk, who had been hiding in the shadows, speaks up. He tells Juang not to waste her time. He explains that the director is hard-headed and wouldn't talk even after an hour of torture, while Kukryul is even tougher, refusing to die despite bleeding out for 30 minutes. Hee-suk tries to cut a deal. Team up with Juang, kill Kukryul, then we find the money and split it 3 ways. That's when the reality hits Hyung-soo like a ton of bricks. Juang lied to him. She has no idea where the money is. Seeing Juang about to raise her gun again, Hyung-soo pulls out the jagged scissors he'd been carrying and points them at her, shouting, "Don't you dare do anything stupid." It's a 4-way Mexican standoff. Kukryul, teeth gritted in pain, starts a countdown. "I'm counting to 5, then we all move." He only gets to 4 when the director, who had been silent this whole time, finally speaks. "You're all going to die." Juang doesn't wait for a 5. She takes her very last bullet and puts it right through the director's forehead. Seeing the chaos, Hee-suk lunges at Juang, but Hyung-soo intercepts him. In a frenzy, Hyung-soo stabs Hee-suk repeatedly until he falls. Hee-suk looks up in shock, gasping his final words, "How can a cop just kill someone?" He dies with his eyes wide open, unable to comprehend what just happened. Juang grabs a knife and starts stabbing Hee-suk's body over and over again, her eyes filled with a mix of tears and pure hatred. "All the suffering I've endured for years, the kidney they stole from me. Today I finally get my revenge," she cries. But with the director dead, the location of the 70 billion won is officially a mystery. Hyung-soo is livid. He grabs Juang, screaming that she played him for a fool. Juang stays silent. Hyung-soo eventually realizes that arguing with her is a waste of time and starts looting the bodies himself. He strips a gold watch off Hee-suk's wrist, pries a ring off his finger, and then grabs another watch from the director's body. He notices their matching couples' watches. He lets out a bitter, mocking laugh. "Even lovers turn on each other for money," he mutters. "So why would I expect anything different from anyone else?" Juang isn't wasting a single second. She tears apart the director's desk and finally finds a secret compartment. But there's a catch. It's locked with a fingerprint scanner. She disappears for a few seconds and returns with an axe. Under Hyung-soo's horrified gaze, she lets out a loud crack and chops off the director's right hand. She slams the severed hand onto the scanner, and after a few beeps, the compartment pops open. But inside, it isn't money. It's rows and rows of anesthetics and morphine. Hyung-soo is crushed, muttering about how this trash is useless. But Ju-young stares at the drugs with trembling hands. She tells him that what she saw through the cracks earlier wasn't just an earthquake. It was the apocalypse. The world outside is in ruins. She tells him, these drugs are going to be worth way more than money now. She tells Hyung-soo to start packing the drugs into their luggage. Even though he's not thrilled, he follows her lead. Suddenly, Kukryul pipes up from the floor. He tells them he knows where the money is. Struggling to sit up, he explains that the director kept staring at the air conditioning unit on the ceiling. The money has to be in there, he wheezes. Ju-young hops onto the desk and rips open the AC cover. Sure enough, there's a small safe inside, also requiring a fingerprint. Hyung-soo tries the severed hand again, but it doesn't respond. In a moment of pure desperation, he actually leans in and licks the severed fingers to get the sensor to recognize the print. Ju-young is visibly disgusted, thinking, this guy will literally do anything. The safe clicks open, and stacks of cash start falling out like a summer rainstorm. The two of them go into a frenzy, stuffing the money into their bags, laughing like maniacs. Kukryul screams for them to take him along, promising he knows the way out. But Hyung-soo doesn't even look back. He tells him that carrying all this cash makes it inconvenient to bring him along, and tells Kukryul he can keep whatever money is left. Ju-young tosses him 2 bottles of morphine, and she and Hyung-soo bolt. But when they reach the rooftop, they find the exit completely blocked by massive, fallen trees. It's a dead end. That's when Hyung-soo remembers the pool they fell into earlier. He saw a drain at the bottom that connected to an outside reservoir. Ju-young tosses the money bags in and drags Hyung-soo back into the water. They manage to crank open the drain valve, and the current flushes them straight out to the reservoir. They scramble onto the shore just as the hotel collapses behind them. If they had been a second later, they'd be buried alive. To their shock, Kukryul somehow managed to escape. Too. Hyung-soo can't believe it. This kid is like a cockroach that just won't die. With no other choice, they take him with them. Hyung-soo pulls out his phone to call for help, but there's zero signal. As the 3 of them wander around searching for a bar, they turn a corner and freeze in their tracks. The earth has been ripped open by a gargantuan fissure. Red light from the core of the earth is gushing out, staining half the sky blood red. It's official. It's the end of the world. While trekking through the woods, they spot a woman in the wreckage. Kukryul, in his delirious state, accidentally injures her, which is just typical for their luck. Ju-young suggests Hyung-soo play the hero cop card. Hyung-soo remembers he still has his badge and quickly pulls it out to try to talk to the woman. Seeing the badge, she relaxes slightly and lowers her weapon. She tells them her husband is pinned under some heavy rocks. Hyung-soo helps her dig the husband out, thinking he's finally doing a good deed. But as soon as the husband is free, the woman's gratefulness vanishes. She levels her gun right at Hyung-soo's head and barks out a cold command. Now, you're going to carry my husband to the hospital. Ju-young has finally had enough. She steps forward and tells the woman that, at this point, finding a functional hospital is probably impossible. But she shows off the stash of anesthetics she's carrying, reminding her that this is the good stuff. She offers a deal, the drugs in exchange for the shotgun. Turns out Ju-young was right all along. That bag of meds is actually going to be way more useful than any amount of cash in this new world. And with that, the movie comes to an end.